And more south.
Oh, I was talking about the area. You're talking about the hurricane.
You're live.
Good. All right, good afternoon. It is 5 p.m. Tuesday, October 8th, a special city council workshop. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that the press and public were duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. Nicole, would you do roll call?
Yes. Councilmember Pierce.
Here.
Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Ward.
Here.
Councilmember Bogosian.
Here.
Councilmember Myers.
Here.
Councilmember Hahn.
Here.
Councilmember Carroll.
Here.
Mayor Pounds.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. First item is citizens' comments.
Rusty Streetman.
Good evening, Rusty Streetman, 44th Avenue, Isle of Palms. First off, I want to thank you all for what you're doing here on the island and everything that you do to serve us. I wanted to speak to three items real quickly tonight. I agree with the proposed resolution and encourage the council to adopt the opposing state preemption of the local regulations of STRs. I do agree with that tonight. I think we should do everything we can to preserve home rule, which clearly states decisions regarding matters that directly impact the quality of life for a municipality should be left for the local localities themselves to decide. The protection of private property rights is paramount to this issue and shouldn't be decided by state legislators that seek unmitigated power and control over local municipalities. So thank you for considering that this evening, or council later this month. The second agenda item I want to speak to is the renovation of City Hall. I spoke to this a couple of weeks ago to you. I think I just wanted to go ahead and come back to this subject. I would encourage all of you to give this close scrutiny as you begin to evaluate the options regarding replacement or renovation of City Hall. I know you're probably first time tonight looking at it as a full council. I wanted to again emphasize the need for much community feedback in the form of public meetings on the subject, gaining as much feedback and input from the community at large. All the replacement options, as you all know, are expensive, and even our island being in great financial shape, we have other high-ticket priorities that are pressing, particularly with drainage, beach maintenance, and renourishment needs, undergrounding power lines as much as we can, working with SCDOT on the Palm Boulevard, and parking enhancements and bike and pedestrian enhancements as well. So I do believe that the renovation option for the City Hall should be revisited, and it may be the best way to go financially for now. So I would encourage you to continue to look at that closely. And I also think it should be considered, since it's such a high ticket item, as a possible referendum item for next year, depending on the feedback you receive from island residents. And the third item is the discussion you're going to have about adopting a sister city in Appalachia. This is close to me as well. I spent a year in the Asheville area, deployed as a district manager up there for my former company, and got close to a lot of people up there, and it's just beautiful country and great people. I just wanted to fully express my support of this being discussed and considered. I know all of our hearts go out to our neighbors to the north, and we're already helping in many ways with supplies, contributions, and volunteerism. The efforts made through our police department, particularly Melissa Dawson, Sergeant Sharon Baldrick, along with some island residents like Julie Nestler and island businesses, all to get assistance as quickly as they could to the Asheville area, was a very notable and worthy cause. I believe this is a great cause to continue to support, and I encourage you to embrace it. On a personal note, this tragic situation reminds me of what we lived through in the Low Country in the aftermath of Hurricane Hugo 35 years ago, and all the help we welcomed and appreciated during that difficult time. I'm sure a lot of the assistance we received back in those days, 35 years ago, was from some of these same neighbors we now have an opportunity to support in some way. So again, thank you, Mayor and Council, for your service to the island.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicole. No special presentations tonight. Dashboard of city operations and short-term rental report. Desiree, you want to run us through the dashboard?
Yes, I'll quickly go through the dashboard. Not a lot of actions have changed from the last dashboard we reviewed last month. In terms of vacancies, we only have 2 police officer vacancies, and we have about 7 folks that are in the going through the process. So hopefully those are successful and we can fill those vacancies as well. We have a lot of community events that are coming up this month. Our staff is really busy preparing for those, make sure that they're safe and everything is well managed. The couple of things that I did want to highlight from the dashboard is the number of cases that the municipal court looked at and processed in September. You can see that big upswing from August. That was due to us canceling municipal court during Tropical Storm Debbie. So that's why you're seeing that spike. The calls for service in the fire department continue to go up compared to prior years.
How's your day?
Ashley, I think you're.
Sorry.
And notably, we keep seeing the number of calls related to EMS and rescue to go up compared to prior years, which makes the decision of council to add the paramedic program even more important, as we see that is a type of call that generates a lot of the response from our fire department. And then the other thing I wanted to point out, in the building department, you can see that the number of homes permitted for calendar year '24, just 9 months into the year, have surpassed the number of permits issued last year, from 20 to 24. So we see a little bit of an uptick in the construction activity on the island, and the value we're already tracking to meet and exceed the value, the construction value from FY '23. Then, second page, you have the short-term rental license report, and this is license year 2023. We are still using the dwelling data provided by the county, and this is the one that was used for the property tax records for October. We have requested the updated list from the county. We should get that in the next, maybe hopefully a few weeks, and then we'll update that information and provide that to you as well.
Questions on that? You have departmental reports in your packet. Any questions or clarifications needed there?
I do want to point out, and Amy, if you can pull the pictures that I sent with you, and just wanted to highlight all of the work that our stormwater management team has been doing for the past couple of months. And I have some pictures here that show the before and after of some of the ditches that we have been working on.
They've been busy.
They've been busy. So these are mostly on Forest Trail, 32nd Avenue. You can see that is the, that one we call the Satilli ditch because it is. Affectionately. It is adjacent to former Mayor Mike Satilli's house, and, you know, we met with him over there in his backyard, and he was completely flabbergasted at how that water was moving and how well just cleaning and restructuring, how well that was doing for that area, and said that he hadn't seen it like that since before Hugo. So that's a huge accomplishment. So just keep an eye out when you see Lenton and Robert. There's a lot of work that they're doing. That's for later. But just wanted to highlight the good work, and I think that during the flooding and rain events that we've had, we've seen a huge improvement with our stormwater systems, and I think it has a lot to do not only with the big projects that the city has completed over the past couple of years, but certainly a lot of the work that they're doing.
Thank you for doing that. Deborah, financial report. You may need to share a mic.
Okay. Good evening. I'm going to start with cover sheet number 1, and I made some notes, so I'm going to try to run through my notes really quickly. For the first quarter of FY25, for all funds, total revenue is 14% of budget, and total expenses is 19% of budget compared to our year-to-date target of 25%. The general fund prior year includes 3 months of parking and court citation revenue versus 2 months for FY25 due to timing. The local option sales tax is 8% less than prior year, which we will see later when we review the tourism schedules. Business licenses and permits are 41% and 18% higher than respectively versus FY24. per the dashboard, as Desiree mentioned, for the 9 months in calendar year 2024, 24 new homes were permitted with construction value at 80.5 million versus 12 months in calendar year 2023, which was 20 permitted at $82.7 million. The general fund actual expenses are 22% compared to 25 year-to-date target. Some notable variances are the insurance deductible claims, which we have a few for the first three months. Overtime, primarily due to Tropical Storm Debbie, and BS&O seasonal payroll. Notes for other funds, the city is waiting on reimbursement funds for the emergency dunes repair for beach preservation fund. The majority of the income on the marina fund stems from the allocation of the grant revenue for the public dock, which came from the ARPA funds. And the disaster recovery expenses were generated by the debris cleanup from the tropical storm as well. Page 2. Okay. The city has a total cash and investment funds of $45.9 million, which 21.6 are restricted. The average interest on the investment is 5.3372%. We should be getting the final audit entries for the city's subscription-based leases early next week, so we can prepare the MDA for the audit statement. And Veris is scheduled to present at the November workshop/council meeting. Page 3. The future cash report reflects capital purchase of the training room technology for the public safety building and a new truck purchased by the rec center in September. All these expenses considered, we have a remaining cash balance of $30.2 million before the 3 large debt service expenditures. For the tourism schedules, the first page, the Muni Fund, we collected $402,000 for beds and heads in July, which is 5% higher year-to-date than prior year. For page 2, we have not received any funds for the quarterly state aid tax. Page 3, we have not received any funds for the quarterly Charleston County aid tax pass-through. But hospitality, we have received $117,000, which is 24% less than August of 2023, but we are 7% higher year-to-date. The Beach Preservation Fund, we collected the same 402, which again is the 5% year-to-date, favorable. And for our local option tax, we, like I stated earlier, we received $133,000 compared to $145,000 prior year, which is 8% less. We did do a schedule to analyze accommodation taxes and hospitality taxes, which is not included, but I will include it for the next workshop. What we did was we compared the percentage change between 2023, FY23 and FY24 to get the percentage change, and we did an estimate for 2025. And when we did the estimate, it looks like we're right in line with what we projected for budget. But we will continue to monitor this to make sure that these revenue streams are coming in as we anticipate. The next couple pages are the project worksheets, and for the interest of time, because I've spoken more than I usually speak, we're not gonna go through those. But if you have any questions, just let me know. And then the grant page, as you find that, the city was approved for 2 new state budgeted allocated grants in September. One was $1 million for the beach renourishment, and one was $1.25 million for the stormwater infrastructure improvements. These funds have not been dispersed to the city yet, but the city has been awarded over $13 million in grants from FY '21 to up into current year, not including some of the smaller grants that we received for like recreation and some of the smaller body armor grants. That's all I have, sir. That was a lot, I know. A little more than usual. But it was a quarter in, so I wanted to give you a little bit more information.
I think having the grant number in front of us is good, with our lobbyists and others in that effort, just to kind of keep it in front of folks. Jan?
I just have a quick question about the revenues shortfall that we showed at on the first page. Is that because the revenues from some of our ATAX sources are delayed in being receiving?
On the first page, clarify.
Just
Summary
timing.
sheet.
It's just a timing issue more than anything.
It's a timing
First
issue?
Yes,
quarter,
yes.
Okay, that's all.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's all I
first
wanted.
quarter's slow for getting revenue in typically. Desiree, a laundry list of some procurement items. You want to run through those for us, please?
Yes, sir. First on your, in your agenda is the recommendation from the Accommodation Tax Advisory Committee to award a grant of $35,000 of state aid tax funds to the Wild Dunes Author Event with Mary Alice Monroe. I don't see her. She had confirmed that she was coming, so I'm hoping she's okay. She was the only application that the city received during the regular funding cycle for FY '25 programs and sponsorships. And as a reminder, this is, the city council allocates $50,000 of the 65% of state aid tax dollars that the city has to use for tourism-related expenditures. The ATAX Advisory Committee established an annual process to consider applications from 501c3s that present events or activities that generate heads and beds in the community. And this was the only application that was received during that first round of funding, and they made a recommendation to award. Hopefully, I know council's not taking any action tonight. I did ask her to come and be prepared to answer any questions about the particular event. It's the same event that council approved some funds for last year. I believe the event is a little bit larger this go-round. The event will be held in Wild Dunes. It's a ticketed event available to the public. I think that they are estimated selling 500 tickets and several events with renowned authors. I will make sure that she attends the council meeting. I will request that that happens in case there are any specific questions about the event.
Is it a nonprofit?
Yes, she
So
did.
where's the money go to? I mean, if her, because we're funding like for 35,000, which I think is half of what her budgeted revenue for the event is. But I'm just curious, if she has a surplus, does it go to some
It's
charity or?
donated to a literacy charity.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Got it.
And Desiree, just real quick, I think they're holding some events outside of Wild Dunes as well, because to your point, it is bigger this year than it has been in prior years.
Yes, sir.
I'd also just like to speak a little bit on her behalf and say how wonderful she has been for our island, and she donates a lot of time and energy and things for the kids at Sullivan's Island Elementary, and she's just a good neighbor. So I think it would be nice for us to give it back to her a little bit.
The event, if you look at the application, there's a lot of information there. Based on the numbers from last year, they estimated that about 33% of the folks that attended stayed at the resort. They have additional plans to track and promote folks staying not only in the resort, but maybe other hotels within our community, and even rentals. And they have a plan of tracking that for this event and providing that information to the city later. The ATAX Advisory Committee has, the FY '25 budget still has, if this grant is awarded of $35,000, it has $15,000 left of that budgeted allocation, and the ATAX Advisory Committee decided to open up a second round of funding, just like they did last year. So we'll be considering additional applications at their next meeting in November, and those recommendations presented to you all at your November meeting. The next item under procurement, we've included for your consideration a change order to Thomas and Hutton, and this is for their design and engineering contract for the Waterway Boulevard Multi-Use Path Elevation Project. You all recall a few months ago, we had Thomas and Hutton come to us and present the results of their feasibility study to determine whether that project could be elevated about a foot to increase the level of protection that project has on the internal basin of the island. It is feasible. We talked about that. So this essentially covers the additional design and engineering that's necessary to effectuate that.
Have we actually decided that that's the direction that we're going, or is this to decide whether or not we want to go that, like, 6 feet versus 7 feet?
At that meeting, I don't think there was a formal vote, but there was sort of general consensus to move, for Thomas and Hutton to move forward with the design of elevating the path. And this is what requires us to work alongside the Wild Dunes Golf Course, so that a lot of the elevation happens behind, not on the actual path, but on the golf course area. And it actually includes properties that would not otherwise be protected, up to a level 6.
But going from 6 to 7 is still more expensive, and we would still have all of those positives and still only go to 6 feet rather than 7 feet, or is that not the case?
So going up to 7 there was a breakdown of the cost to actually do that entirely, and there were several sections that required some retaining walls that equaled up to maybe $5 million. That piece was not included in the direction given to Thomas and Hutton. It was to try to maximize the level of protection up to 7, not including those seawalls that would have been required and made the project much more
But
expensive.
is your question whether, is there marginal benefit to be going from 6 to 7? I think there is. It provides benefit to people that would continue to have flooding issues at 6 feet.
Correct.
So
And
there is a marginal benefit by going to 7.
we actually have a map that we can share with you.
Yeah,
Some
I mean,
of-
I remember all of that, I just didn't remember that we ever actually
Yeah, we didn't-
decided to go to 7.
Yes, I think you're correct in that there was no vote. This would effectuate, this would be the vote, essentially, to finalize those plans to the level, to a 7-foot protection.
Did we vote on the actual adjusted cost? I know we talked at one point, it was 900, 1.1, 1.2, it's now 1 point something, I'm not actually.
And I feel like we left it at
1.7.
trying to get to the actual, like, real difference between the, like, what the pros and cons of going from 6 to 7, whether it's, obviously it's a foot higher, but it's considerably more cost. I thought we left it as we were looking to get, and maybe that's what this information is to give us that information.
Could we have that presented at the council meeting, maybe and I think the other part was, as I recall, that the grant was static, so the grant, as our price is going up, the grant's not going up.
Right.
Correct.
So maybe we can wrap the change order along with, hey, what's the revised price, what's the ultimate cost of the city on the estimate, and we can take a vote on it.
Okay, we can certainly do that and ask Thomas.
How
mean, 'cause we
how
could
do they
still-
know what the actual cost is if they haven't done the design yet?
I have an
guess.
estimate, John.
Yeah.
I think it was, I think at the last meeting, it was around 700,000 additionally. And I do think, I know that it's on a map. I don't know if they've actually quantified, but we could certainly quantify the number of properties that would have been impacted, that would be impacted if we go back to 6. That delta in the number of properties protected. So we could get those, I mean, we definitely have access to those two kind of metrics. Is there anything?
Yeah, maybe just a
else?
refresher of.
So basically, the whole plan, the plan itself changes when you go from 6 to 7. It's not just like going a foot higher.
That's correct.
Correct.
The location where the barrier
So we
is
couldn't-
physically,
I think this is I think this is where I've been having difficulty. We couldn't do the 7-foot protection in the same, or the 6-foot in the same methodology that we're doing the
That's
7-foot.
correct. The only way we can get to 7 feet is the kind of good luck of the golf course shutting down and being, and then modifying the golf
Right,
course.
but why
and that
can't we do
happens-
that to 6 feet? That's where I keep going.
Well, if we do it to 6, if we go back to 6,
That
we
was the
can do
original
it.
plan.
We could actually do that just on the, we wouldn't have to involve
Okay.
the golf course.
But the original plan was to use the golf course.
No, the original
Well,
6.
sorry, at one point, before December 17th, we were talking about partnering with Wild Dunes and having work on the golf course that
That
was
is
going
correct.
to get us 6 feet.
So
Then
that is
December
correct. That
17th
was
happened,
Drain lines getting to their ponds is correct.
and we shifted to look at 7 feet.
That's correct.
But I'm still trying to understand why.
Kind of measure the benefit.
Yeah, I mean, because if, if we could do the same exact thing that we're doing for 7 feet, for 6 feet, what would the cost of that be?
So the cost for the original scope was $1.1 million. And that was the scope and that's up to an elevation 6. And that was the scope that was included in the city's grant application to FEMA for the
Right.
Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. That is a 90%, 90-10 share. That's why we're getting a grant of about $900,000 from FEMA. The additional cost to go up to 7 feet is roughly about 700, 800,000 more. And after December, the nor'easter happened, we asked them to study whether it was feasible to increase the level of protection, knowing that maybe nor'easter-type events were going to be more common. And if they are, the elevation, as we had originally contemplated, would not provide much protection. So they came here a few months ago to present the results of that feasibility study, indicating it is feasible, only feasible if you partner with the golf course and elevate portions of their golf course and connect it to the plan that we already had. And that's where we are. And I think that the challenge is that presentation happened at a workshop where council doesn't vote. And now there's a change order for the design and the engineering to effectuate that, which is what we have on the agenda today.
Which would essentially be taking it to 7, to your question, Katie.
I mean, that's a lot of, we're almost doubling the price of the project.
Yeah, but a foot in water blockage is huge.
So is 6.
Oh,
I mean,
But 7
I
is
mean,
even
6
better.
feet's a lot, so yeah, 10, 20 is
hold
better.
on.
I mean,
All right.
you reach a point where we have to, I mean, I don't know, I'm just trying to think about this, and
Okay.
I feel
Yeah.
like we never really decided
No, you're right. I mean,
on
that's-
7 feet, and now we're deciding on 7 feet without voting on 7.
Okay. I have two comments. One of them is, I think the 7-foot elevation is the preferred elevation for the island in terms of protecting us from flooding and storm surges in the future. The second thing is, if we're getting cost estimates about what the additional cost is, we also need to look at what it will cost us later if we don't do that 7-foot elevation now, which makes it much more expensive. It's not just throwing another foot of dirt out there. It becomes a much more difficult project if we wait 5 or 10 years when we're getting flooding to the extent that we need to repair it. So we're looking to the future if
Yeah,
we can.
And I don't think
afford
you
it now.
can do, I mean, that's part of this kind of conundrum is a timing thing where I don't think you actually can do it in 5 years because you physically need the space to be able to spread the berms out so that they're not, otherwise, if you go to 7 and you don't have the ability to do it on the golf course, you're trying to put like a 2-foot tall, or in some places 3-foot tall curb in front of someone's house, and the road up to the curb and then down to their driveway, you can't realistically do it. So you need that kind of open space to be able to work the dunes into it. So a little bit of it is, a little bit of it is timing. But we can certainly do the cost, we can do the number of properties impacted. There was some statistical information about, how much more frequently are you going to get a flood that's between 6 and 7, kind of in the
They
next.
had a schedule. They had a
Yeah, in
schedule
the
that
next
went up there and.
100 years, what's the percent chance of those style
Events happen.
events? So we can get that to you at the
Yeah, in
packet.
the next packet, I think would be helpful, just kind of a revisit.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I had those were the questions that, and I don't think they were ever addressed.
Yeah, we can do it at the next
But I guess,
council.
Unless I missed
to your
something.
original point, Katie, I think a vote at the next meeting on this will be a vote to move forward with the 7 feet.
Yes or
Right.
no?
One or the other, that would be the vote.
Yeah.
Correct.
We'll ask them to come. Because they probably can explain this a lot more eloquently than the non-engineers you have here.
Well, and again, I mean, it's just a window of an opportunity to relatively inexpensively to take it to 7 feet, that we just not going to have that opportunity again over there. But anyway, go ahead, Desiree.
All right, the second, or the third item that you have under procurement, this is a contract in the amount of $261,000 to Beach Construction for construction of 2 boardwalks at 26 and 36A. Beach access paths. So you'll remember, we have 2 that are starting construction this week, and that is at 46th Avenue and 52nd. Those 2 are funded by a state allocation from FY '24. We received $500,000 for those 2 ADA. These are not ADA compliant. The topography doesn't lend themselves for them to be ADA compliant. However, they will still be a tremendous improvement to public access in both locations. The city has requested a grant from the Charleston County Greenbelt Program. The city, because it's a coastal community, has the opportunity to use those funds, which are technically only for, or mostly for land acquisition. Coastal communities such as ours, such as Alla Palms, can use them for minor improvements to beach access paths. The Greenbelt Board is meeting later this month, and, they're meeting this month, and then Charleston County will vote on their recommendation for an award in November, and the funds will then be available in December for us. I just wanted to put that on the agenda, get the ball rolling, have a contract. This is a reimbursable grant, so that the work can happen starting in December and be completed before next spring.
But we're not doing it unless we get the grant.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then the fourth item, we have a report of budgeted expenditures from 10 to 25. So according to the procurement code, anything that falls within that range that is budgeted and doesn't exceed 10%, I approve as a purchasing agent and report to council.
What is aerial lift for Recreation Department?
It's a lift to change the lights.
Scissor lift that goes up.
I-
Platform that goes up.
I'm sorry, I'm answering your question with your saying. I don't know how else to say it. A lift to go up.
It's like a little chair, it's a little baby cherry
Get
picker,
high.
isn't it? I mean, like, more or less.
Scissor lift.
Desiree, you're on a roll.
All
Couple
right.
projects.
Couple projects. So for the Waterway Boulevard path, you know that we.
Amy, do you have this on the screen, if you don't mind?
We received the grant agreement from FEMA for about $900,000 for that project. We had a meeting with them a couple weeks ago for the kickoff meeting, and additional meetings have been happening between the engineers, Walden staff, and the golf course folks to talk about the incorporating the 7-foot, if that is the will of council, into their golf renovation project. Phase 4 drainage, this is improvements to Palm Boulevard between 38th and 41st. I signed the permits last week, so that's in process. This one does not require a critical area permit, so that means it's going to move much quicker. Our budget.
Relatively.
Our budget anticipates construction next fall.
Because I know we're doing this in conjunction with water and sewer, parts of it, right? Could all this happen prior to season or not?
Prior to next season?
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
no.
No thought, no anything? just
No
to know.
period.
That's good. Okay.
Quick note.
Just curious.
Let's see, I'm just picking up those that have changed from last month. The public dock and green space, Amy, if you don't mind pulling up the picture, the kayak launch, ADA kayak launch was installed this week. It looks great. We're still waiting on an ETA on the swings that are going to be installed along the fixed pier, and also some logos that are going to be placed there.
Trash cans.
Trash cans will be added as well.
Recycling.
And I met with Chief Cornett earlier this week to review signage that's necessary so that we can enforce illegal bulk docking and mooring. We have security cameras, so the area will be under surveillance, and hopefully, after a few get a ticket or two, they'll spread the word.
That
There were
sadly
clips
has
on the
been an
one
issue.
side, and I saw they're removed now, which is gonna be a big benefit from.
Yes,
Yeah.
I asked them to remove that. We only have cleats on the inside, and that's meant for kayaks as they're launching. But that is the kayak launch. Really beautiful.
That's nice.
It looks good.
Looks really good.
Looks great.
I said the trash cans recycling, can we get the thing that holds monofilament? I think they make a special container,
Yeah.
because this is going to be used for a lot of fishing.
Yeah, believe it or not, trash there is a little complicated because the last time that we put a trash can there, it had been filled multiple times by household garbage by folks that don't live on the island. So we were talking, Douglas and I, about having a different type of container that doesn't, that's locked and maybe only allows
One
people
at a
to.
time or something, yeah.
But just, we've tried once and it became a little bit of a mess. The marina dredging, and so y'all know we got a $1.5 million in state budget allocation in FY '23. We had a pre-application meeting with the Corps last month, and you may recall that we had discussed about reaching out to stakeholders around that area and inviting them if they wanted to join with the city in the permitting effort and certainly during construction to try to minimize and share in the cost of the mobilization of these dredges. We met with the Corps, and there's just a lot of the additional stakeholders that would be joining the city's permit application have not dredged before. And when you have never dredged, the Corps will ask you for a lot of surveying, a lot of studies, a lot of stuff that we don't have to do. Our permit alone, it's around 12 to 18 months. If we wait for a group to first get organized, hire their engineer, do all the permitting requirements to be able to join our permit, we're looking at least 2 more years for the permit to be issued to us. The benefit is some of these stakeholders are looking at dredging along their private docks. There is a general permit that the Corps issues that allows a property owner to dredge up to 1,500 cubic yards of sand along their property without any of all the paperwork that they would be required if they organize and do it as one larger project. So we will be sharing that with those property owners, and our recommendation and our engineer's recommendation is that we move forward with the permitting process for the city. If those owners I'm mostly referring to folks that are along Intercoastal Court and Waterway Island, because Yacht Harbor and some of the other entities are already going through their own permitting process. If they all sort of get together and organize and get all the paperwork in place, get their permit and are ready for, to do the work, when we do the work, be happy to include them in that, at that point, and share in the cost of the mobilization. But they need they need to do a lot of work first. And our concern is these dollars need to be spent, and we cannot wait 5 more years to get the project in place. So we tried, we will be communicating this information to all those owners and giving them the option of that general permit. But I just wanted to report that to you all. If anybody has any specific questions, happy to talk it through some more.
Desiree, this is an Army Corps and OCRM
Yes, sir.
permit.
Yeah, we had the pre-application meeting with the Corps and waiting on the pre-application meeting with BCM, and then after that, 30 days later is when the permit can be submitted.
Yeah.
And then 12 months,
get carried away, yeah.
don't get carried away. Then 12 to 18 months later could be issued. All right. Beach access improvements, I talked a little bit about that. 52nd Avenue and 46 started this week. Those two, as they are ADA compliant, include the addition of handicap parking along the public area, the easement, along the beach access path. So we're very excited about that, and those should be completed in December.
Is 52nd go to like a lake, or is that lake only there at certain times? The last time I went up there, it was like you went over the dune and then there was a lot of water, like before you actually got to the beach. Is it always like that?
Did we
or-
see that yesterday?
It's that way. It
Yeah,
it
happens
is.
to be that way now.
with the high
Probably
tides.
knows how frequently that happens. My impression is it's rare. Is it?
Yeah, no, it's it's rare. The reason is that there's a ridge that has accreted right at the water. And if you have a really high tide or you have a lot of wind, it pushes some of the water over that ridge and then it settles in the dunes.
But it's not
It's
like
kinda
that
trapped,
on a
and
And then
regular
it just-
basis?
No, it just takes
Okay.
time for that to absorb. And there are multiple ridges of that as the dunes build. There's another one very close, it's just always a little bit damp.
Okay.
That's 200 yards from the water.
Yeah, that was the, I
Because
saw
I
it
was just
yesterday, and
imagining
that was
that
the
we-
first time I'd seen it.
I was just
in
imagining,
years.
that we put this nice ADA compliant ramp down there and then people get to basically a swamp. So, I would,
It'll go past that.
No,
It's
it
typically-
stops
It'll-
this side of
but
it.
it is typically, okay.
And the kids love it, they swim through it.
I mean, I was a little hesitant to walk through it.
The snakes are small.
All right, on beach maintenance and restoration, we're going to be executing the contract with CSC for the second phase that council approved last month, the second phase of the large-scale projects to get that permit process underway. Emergency beach restoration work is ongoing. We anticipate within this week to complete the placement of all of the sandbags within the next week, right? All of the sandbags that council approved before, 2 weeks ago, approving 500 additional. So that's where,
Those will be at end of next week.
end of next week, those sandbags will be installed.
The up to 500 additional.
No, before the
before the 500
500,
additional, yeah.
correct.
I think it was 800 at this end.
Yes. A little wrinkle, the city, the city had been paying $450 per bag, and that includes the cost of the bag of $150 and filling them at the pit and installing them. The price has gone up to $690. We are going to be purchasing bags from multiple vendors to try to accelerate the production, filling, and installation. We will be using the allocation that was approved by council 2 weeks ago for the 225,000 and maximize that. We still have some money available through the SCPRT grant that covers work around Breach Inlet So we hope that that can make up the difference, but just wanted to let you all know that, that the
Why did it
prices,
go up? Did the bags go up, or did the filling go up, or what's
For
the
the
portion?
contractor.
both.
Okay, both. There seems to be more to this story than.
I realize they got us.
There's a middle person that has inserted themselves into this process that is holding life hostage.
So we are moving forward on those sandbags.
I'll have to find out more.
On the beneficial use project, the contractor Autna has still not yet started 24/7 operations, and they have mobilized since they began middle of September, towards the end of September. They've mobilized 33,000 cubic yards of sand on Sullivan's. Their goal is 200,000. So they still are not in full, they're working through some kinks. They're still not through their, where they need to be clearly. So we do not have yet a date on when the work will commence on Isle of Palms. Good news, the material is coming out as expected. It's staying along the placement area. Once they start 24/7 operations, we'll get a better idea of the capacity of the dredge for placement, and they'll be able to tell us exactly when they will be coming to Isle of Palms. Shore management permit, I shared with you all the questions that were received through the Army Corps of Engineers public comment period. The city has responded to those comments. Those are available online, and I think I shared them directly to council. That is a sort of a good sign. That's usually towards the end of a permit being considered, so we anticipate, hoping that that permit will be issued by the end of this year, and we can bid that out and have the project constructed early next year. The city is also waiting on the permit from OCRM and the Corps for the proposed supplemental work on Breach Inlet. You all know that we anticipate moving some of that sand up into the dune and to the dry sand beach. We need a permit for that. We have not yet received it, but we know that they are actively working on that. Sullivan's Island has a similar request in, and we know that they recognize that time is of the essence, and we hope that that is forthcoming.
Desiree, I got kind of a process question, not to get too deep into the bag situation, but we approved this a couple of months ago, and it was an 800 bag for $450, and it was pretty much set. And I guess from a process standpoint, do we not get like when we get those numbers, or are we not getting like a fixed bid? And so
that's under those are under contract. We're talking about the new 500 that were approved 2 weeks ago.
okay, so those are now, if we were to do another 500 additional, those are now going to be, future bags are 690, not the bags that we've already bought. Correct.
Not the ones, the 500 additional that were approved 2 weeks ago. We went out and saw pricing for those, and those came out at 690. Everything else we've done before then has been under contract at the 450 rate. But this was a completely new change order for 500 more.
So we're looking at roughly, what, $250 a bag? That's what, $125,000 roughly different?
$120,000 more.
Well, it's not more because we said up to.
Correct.
So it's going to be less bags.
It would be less bag. The allocation was for 225. If we get 500 at 690, we would need 120,000 more.
Okay. All right.
And-
I'll wait for the more to the story.
And then the other project, undergrounding power lines, the project scheduled for 14th Avenue has been rescheduled. Dominion Energy was planning on coming here that week of the storm, and they have mobilized all of their resources to respond to Helene impact. So we do not have a date yet of when they would be mobilizing here to do that project.
Oh, I hate to go back, but.
Go back.
The 500 bags.
Yes.
Wasn't it the idea that we were going to buy the bags and fill what we needed and then keep them? Wasn't that?
The empty bags.
That was
That was another
Plan
one.
A. In the meeting, we pivoted to Plan B, which was to actually buy and
Fill them and install them.
install them as needed.
Okay.
So that is still a good idea. We still want to pursue that, but we accelerated the program during the meeting to actually
Okay.
filling them and installing.
Because we felt like the need was going to be there.
So we still ordered 500 bags?
We are ordering, yes.
500 bags,
Yes.
even though the price is more?
No, we aren't, no.
We
are,
There's more to this story. We did actually order 500 bags, but they were at the old price. And that just happened today. I mean, this,
hot off the press.
you would not believe between
Hey,
8
Douglas.
a.m.
Yeah.
Between 8 a.m. and noon, how many pivots and changes would be in this whole thing. But we did actually order 500 bags at the old bag material price. We're also now buying bags and paying for the service of the bags in 2 different arrangements because that got too complex.
So at the end of the day, we will have 500 more bags?
We are going to have 500 bags at the old rate.
Awesome.
As of today, they're going to be here. I can tell you when they're going to be here, and then we'll see what actually
When they
happens.
show.
I'd rather just be surprised.
Yeah.
And then 21st Avenue sidewalk, this is a project funded by Charleston County CTC. This is the repair and extension of that sidewalk that runs in front of the church. The county has one more permit that they have to secure, the MS4 permit. Their estimated cost of the project went up, so they are asking the county for additional funding at their meeting later this month. After approval, the bid solicitation would happen in December, and they usually leave bids open for several months before they're awarded. So this would be awarded in March, which puts the construction of the project in the season, which we're working through with the county to try to expedite and minimize disruption as much as we can during the
Can you
season.
remind me of what the project limits are for that? How much of 21st Avenue is included?
So the sidewalk currently ends sort of right in the middle of the church. That sidewalk, it's going to be extended to the sidewalk that's on Palm Boulevard. So it's going to go around the curve, but the extensions go all the way to Waterway on 21st.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Desiree.
You're welcome.
Douglas. Next item, strategic plan, policy initiatives and priorities. First is livability, discussion of adopting resolution opposing state preemption of local regulations of short-term rentals. You recall when we had our lobbyist here a month or 2 ago, we put a list together, I think, of 4 items for them to focus on in the new legislative year. A little bit of an oversight on this one, although we weren't sure that there was going to be new legislation put up again this year around this topic. Looks like it is, so this is to give direction to our legislative representatives and our lobbyists to oppose anything that would limit a local municipality having say-so over short-term rentals in their city. So this is very similar to what we did last year. Any questions?
Refreshing the resolution from last year. is
Yes.
what we're looking at.
Well,
The opposition, yeah.
Well, just to clarify, the resolution from last year was specific to a bill that had been introduced.
Yeah.
This is a
Should
more
make it general.
general, applies to any bill that tries to limit a municipality's ability to regulate short-term rentals.
And I assume we'd send this to the municipal association as they're fighting this as well, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
I think
sir.
in your resolution, it's MASC, governor, our legislators, our lobbyists.
Are we aware of other municipalities going to be doing the same thing?
I would anticipate so, yes.
I know last year was
Yeah,
a lot.
I think we had,
yeah, MASC's pushing pretty hard on this
We're being
one.
very proactive doing this now and not next
Because there's
year.
nothing, there's nothing
out
out there right now.
Yeah,
Correct.
Nothing's
It's
been
just-
pre-filed.
so we'd anticipate
In
having a
anticipation.
draft at the next meeting? At the meeting.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
All for that.
yeah.
Okay, that's-
Jan, do you have a question? Sorry. You good?
thank you.
Desiree, anything else?
No,
with
sir.
that? Next item, environmental discussion of approval of a contract to alter energy systems in the amount of $66,565 for the Public Works Solar Rooftop Project. I think this is coming out of the Environmental Advisory Committee. Desiree or Douglas? either one.
Correct. This is a project that was recommended by the Environmental Advisory Committee. They worked with Matt Sims, our zoning administrator, to submit a grant to the Department of something, I can't remember. But it's probably in the packet.
Energy efficiency
Yes.
and conservation.
There you
Grant.
go. And the city received about $62,000 a grant for that. We put it out for bid, received bids for the actual project, and the one that is in front of you is the one that's being recommended. It's a low bid at $66,000. $66,565.
Questions? Comments?
Hopefully it'll
So
end up
what's-
saving us money in the long run.
Yeah, well, I'm just curious of what it does save us.
Do we know how much?
There's been talk.
How much the Public Works electric bill will be reduced?
Yeah,
I do not have
order of
that. but
magnitude. I mean, is this going to supply how much of the energy? It's just, or that's.
It's just the
public.
Public Works
Yeah.
shed, but we could certainly
Guess the
provide
question
that.
is, what's the payback?
I mean, I'd just like to understand the economics of a project like this.
Based on my house,
Yeah.
$400 to $500 a month
savings.
savings.
I
You get-
I don't
you get
know.
paid,
That's a
right?
long payback for $262,000.
Well,
it's
that's
not
a month, that's
Yeah.
six grand a
I
year.
know, yeah. Still,
Yeah, but it's,
I wouldn't
10 years,
invest in a
it's
deal like that.
13,000 kilowatts,
Yeah.
and I've got 15,000 kilowatts in
And,
my house.
and it is a grant, so I mean,
I
it's.
know
not-
it's a grant.
It's
Yeah.
not the
Money.
city's money, it
I'd
would
just
be
like to
their.
understand the economics if they have it. If not, don't worry about it, but.
I know their offices, I mean, they actually pushed for us to submit the application, so it's, it's their program, they're wanting to kind of.
The South Carolina
Yes.
Energy Efficiency.
Yeah, they're wanting visible locations that kind of send a signal to the community about, the benefit. So that's
what I'd
why
like to
specifically.
understand what the benefit is.
Yeah. But we can certainly, I actually don't know what their kind of monthly bill is and what this level of flood panels, solar panels would pay back if their bill goes completely away, if there's a credit, I actually don't know, so we can get that.
I know it's a feel-good
have that.
thing, but I'd just like to understand the economic
So we
benefit.
can have that.
That may
at
be
our next-
included in the
next meeting.
application, so we can dig that up and let you know. We know Donnie is thrilled for this project to be.
He wants to know who's cleaning. That's his main question.
Part of the maintenance.
There is no maintenance.
What?
You don't clean yours?
No.
That's why I only says 400 a month.
When it rains, it cleans itself.
I told Donnie that, he doesn't want to believe that. Just saying.
It's true, guy.
All right, so maybe a council meeting, we can have some specifics on that. Thank
Do
you.
a field trip at my house.
Field trip, yeah, let's do a field trip.
Next item, nothing for public services or personnel. Other items for discussion. First is discussion of new revenue opportunities. This is in your packet. So real quick, you'll see at the top of this draft of the page says draft for discussion only. So before you jump to a particular line item, let me just give you some background and reminders on what we're looking at here. In the coming months, there'll be a full-blown report from the Beach Preservation Ad Hoc Committee. You'll recall, that's a committee made up of 3 council members and 4 residents, I believe it is, along with staff. So we've been meeting since late January, early February, looking at a whole lot of ideas and talking to a whole lot of folks. But one of the directives for this committee was to develop recommendations for new, consistent, and sustainable funding mechanisms to fund future beach renourishment needs and projects. So since the state doesn't have an ongoing source of funding for the beach, and their support has been very hit or miss, and federal support generally only shows when there's a named storm, identifying revenue opportunities was the charge to the committee. So what you've got in front of you tonight, again, we'll have a full-blown report coming later, but this is potential revenue opportunities the committee has come up with. Committee has looked at many different options, trying to ensure all stakeholders have, kind of skin in the game or some contribution towards future projects. So this list breaks out some that are in our control, some that are much more long-term that would require state law changes. But the ones that are in our control, I just want to get some reaction from you tonight. So what I'd like to do, and those that we may have some agreement on, go ahead and start the process of 2 readings and public hearings and our normal 2 to 3 month process to get a change in fees. But let me just walk you through this spreadsheet, walk you through each piece, and then we'll come back and talk about the controllable section, if that's all right. So the first section of this, so between the first two blue lines, if you will, are things we've identified that are essentially in control of IOP City Council to make something happen. So in that, you can see, I know it's really hard to see in the room, it's small print, but it's in the package, and council, you have it. Increase of parking lot fees, increase those 15%, and over to the right, you can see the potential revenue for each of these items. Increasing parking meter fees, and you can see that. Change for parking in beach district would be a little bit longer term. We would need some infrastructure and some approval to make that happen. Property tax increase, this is the max property tax increase that you could do with a 3-year rollback. Increasing building permit fees by 15%, increasing business license fees by 15%, increasing short-term rental license fees by 15%. You'll recall we increased the base fee, I think it was $100 for a base fee 2 years ago. Maybe this would be either the base fee or the based on revenue fee, that's to be determined. On-beach business franchise fees, think about it in the sense of chairs and umbrellas and the city getting a cut on approved vendors that may be out there for that, and we just kind of plugged in a number there of 50,000, you can see. Establishing a beach service or user fee allowed in the state code. We had an attorney meet with us, gosh, I don't know, 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago, Scott and Katie, that we looked at multiple different things that are available to a municipality to apply to tax district or many other things, and this is about the only thing that's allowed by state law in its current format is just some type of a flat fee across all residents. And again, we're just plugging in numbers at this point, just to give you some idea of what we're talking about.
The charge for parking in Beach District, and then it says add new spots, 300. Can you just explain what that is?
Well, when are we gonna do the discussion?
Yeah, let me just get through, and I'll come back. Hold that thought.
Yeah,
Put a
I've got
pin in that,
questions, too.
Blair. So next two blue lines, if you will, are really just a reallocation of current revenue from our tourism fund. So you can see moving some from state aid tax, muni aid tax, and hospitality funds. So again, this is not new revenue, just new revenue to the beach preservation fund if we decided to do that. Next two blue lines are Wild Dunes cost sharing. That's been, you can see over to the right, 18% in 08, 14% in 2018. So a desire by the committee to put something in writing, if you will, to have a codified cost share arrangement with Wild Dunes on projects in that area. Next two blue lines, you can see in big red bold, requires changes to state law, sources not currently available, and these are absolute placeholders at this point. Statewide Beach Renourishment Fund, you recall we got about $850,000 this year. That was kind of a one-time gift, if you will. Changes to the state aid tax to allow us to use different things. That's, again, these are longer-term state-specific funds. We got $1 million this past state budget year for beach renourishment. Again, that was a one-time effort. We'll talk about state budget request here in just a minute. Adding another 1% on top of the aid tax, municipal improvement district, and a real estate transfer fee. Again, all of these are requiring a state law change that would make it a long-term item. And then the last two sets of blues is looking at the Army Corps. So one of the things this committee has looked at, we talked to Folly Beach last week. I think we have Edisto Island coming up this week, talking to other communities that have gone down the path of choosing to be a federally managed beach. And the pros and cons of that, the timing of that, and what that means to us. So that's certainly an option that we're looking at, but so not necessarily, that's not a revenue bucket, if you will. It's just changing the way that we would manage our beach to become a federally managed beach.
Would it be helpful to add that, from a targeting standpoint, I think, and this is a moving target, depending upon assumptions, is that we're trying to close a gap in today's dollars. I think the committee came up with roughly a $3 to $4 million shortfall over the 30-year planning horizon. Is that a fair statement, Bill?
Yeah, so we've got between Stephen Trainum and staff and our financial advisor, kind of a 32-year, there's a little method to the madness, but a 32-year program spreadsheet that looks at you making a whole lot of assumptions around what a healthy beach looks like, an erosion rate, funding sources, and again, to Scott's point, there's a shortfall, that we need to look at, and that's what we have charged this committee with, of looking at ongoing sustainable revenue items, and that's what this is. So back to the top of the list, Blair. If there are questions, comments, thoughts around, again, what's controllable and kind of what's in our wheelhouse that we could have some control over. Desiree, do you want to touch on Blair's question specifically around
Sure.
the spaces and?
So the
footnote.
third bullet point charge for parking in Beach District, this includes the roughly 648 parking spaces that are between the avenues and Palm Boulevard mostly, both sides of Palm, and one side of Palm between 41st and 57. So we're just assuming roughly half of those are
Oh,
charged.
you're talking about, okay.
Yes. So we know in order to be compliant with state law, we can charge for parking, but we have to have free parking. That we don't have the guideline yet of how much free parking needs to be available. So this is just for discussion purposes. We just took half of that number.
So when you say add new spots, that's new paid parking spots?
Yes, sir.
It's not new parking spots?
Correct. It would be
Oh,
charging the beach parking places that are currently free.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jan?
With respect to parking, there's one thing I think we can do right away, and we're going to be having our parking management consultant giving a report for this year, I think
November.
November, okay. Right now, the county park charges $20 a day for their parking. We charge $15 a day. I think we should definitely increase our rate to match the county's rate for
So,
parking.
Just to clarify, the county charges 20 on the weekends and holidays.
Okay.
15 during the week. So 15 and 20, we have 10 during the week and 15 on
I
the,
think we should raise it to match the county. That's a 30 to 35, a third to more than that increase in parking right off the bat there. And I don't think anybody would, not too many people would notice the difference, especially since our City of Isle Palms residents get free parking no matter what the rate is. So I think that's a no-brainer, and I think so instead of having a 15%
Match it.
match it. Yeah, see what that is. And our parking manager can probably tell us.
I think the intent of this is just to display what options we have. The parking management vendor is working on a series of models and projections and different fee structures for us to consider. So I think it'll look very different. I think we're being very conservative with the 15%.
Yes, too conservative, though. It doesn't give us an accurate.
But we won't know that until we have
It's
that
just an
report
item.
with them
It's
from
just an item for
November.
potential revenue, the amounts we can plug in later.
Correct.
Yeah.
But
The
I think,
idea was
it's-
get these topics on the
Yep.
table.
yeah, but I
Correct.
think it's a good idea to get an idea of the order of magnitude of what we can raise
Yeah.
from there. It's probably a lot more than the $109 or $200,000 that you have here between the parking meters and the lot fees.
So it sounds like there's an appetite to do something definitely with the first two items. Is that a fair statement?
Yep.
And then the third one,
Yeah,
we'd have to go to DOT to
Yeah,
get some
that's a
approval on that.
TBD
Yeah.
there. Let's skip this one for just a second and talk about building permit fees, building license fees, and short-term rental license fees. I think Desiree, I think y'all had looked when we'd done this before. I know we're under other municipalities from these type of fees, even with the 15% addition we're looking at. So I don't know what anybody's reaction is to.
My reaction
Looking
would
at
be,
these.
these were just sort of plugged items. I think we should benchmark against what other municipalities are, and if we have an opportunity to match again what the market rate is, then we should do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've done an analysis showing the difference, or, if you were building a $500,000 home in Isle of Palms versus Sullivan's, Folly, all of our surrounding communities, what that would look like, and understand where the opportunity is. And it's, with a building permit, there's electrical permits, there's a plumbing, so there's just a lot of little things that make up that number.
Yep.
And in some, we're way below, so we may be over 15% in terms of the increase. In others, it may be 10%. So we'll show that maybe for the next workshop, I think would be helpful. So I think taking it at a global
Yeah.
level, maybe it's easier for at least the purpose of this discussion. But that would take a sort of a detailed approach to look at every single permit within that and see how much they could be increased.
And I don't know whether we should look at a percentage of the estimated cost of the unit too, something like that, so that it goes up as the houses go up, and get larger and larger, then we're gaining more
Yeah, I think the
revenue.
way it works now, it's at least in broad stroke, it's a base fee plus
Yeah.
a percent of revenue. So if it's a bigger home where they're generating more revenue,
Okay.
we also get part of that fee and I think we'd want that as a percentage, so
Yeah.
that if it's a bigger business, we're getting.
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Short-term rental license fees, again, we did the base fee 2 years ago, I think it is. And again, that was just a flat $100, Desiree and Douglas, if I remember right. Again, we're just plugging in a 15%, however we get there, whether it's on the base fee or the revenue piece of it.
We get a percent of their income too? I mean, based on,
They pay a base fee for the first
Plus.
$2,000 of gross revenue reported, and then for every 1,000 reported, it's a different percentage.
okay, yeah.
So the more they generate,
So it's not just $100.
the more
I
their,
mean,
the
yeah.
higher their applicate permit is.
Yeah, there's two places on here, I guess, for short-term rentals. One is what you just talked about, and then down below, there's additional 1% A-tax. I guess one's
Right.
they're coming out of two different buckets, I guess. One is, the
Payers.
1% is gonna be the renters are paying, and the other one, the owners are paying. And I don't know if we tap too many of those, but I'm all for trying to figure out one of those. And my preference would be on the 1% A-tax fee, to increase it by 1%. But that's gonna require some state help, and I don't know how hard that is to get something like that done, but,
Well, the last time we did it, it was 2014, 15, and it was probably a 2 to 3 year slug.
yeah.
And the changes at that time was allowing communities to dedicate 1%
Yeah.
towards beach preservation. It wasn't an additional 1%. Municipalities are allowed to charge 2% of their local accommodation tax.
Right.
And what that piece of legislation did was that you can dedicate half of it and restrict it for beach preservation.
I wonder if since
Yeah.
the states elected not to continue to fund their assistance, that there might be a little bit more appetite for allowing it if it's not coming out of, if it's coming out of the renters' pockets, I guess.
Maybe,
I don't know.
yeah,
Maybe,
I don't
yeah.
know. Well, and that's, go ahead, John.
I was just gonna say, it's kind of a moving target in some sense, what we're trying to hit, because we don't understand the bottom piece yet, and, the federal help, and I think there'll always be a need for us to have beach funds ready for your nourishment, because the federal funds, my understanding, are on a fixed schedule. If something happens in between them, we need to have the resources to be able to mitigate any issues, but it wouldn't be nearly as high. And so I think it's somewhat of a moving target here on what we're trying to hit until we get all the pieces put together. But I'm certainly for the things that we can do within reason, like parking and those business fees and those type of things. We should continue down the path of exploring if there's opportunities for increased revenue there.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, as it stands today, we're on our own. I mean,
Yeah, it is.
The federal funds, if they ever happen, are a long way away, and the state is,
Very hit or miss.
yes. So, I mean, the way I look at it is we have to look at it as being completely on our own. I don't think we can rely on any outside sources.
We
which
can
is-
also,
Yeah.
if we assess these, we can also roll them back if we have other money.
Yeah, if it's our money
Or
to
if the
play with.
state kicks
yeah.
in.
Exactly.
I do want to point out that this schedule, even though it was prepared and has been discussed in light of the conversation from the Beach Preservation Ad Hoc Committee and trying to identify the funding available to effectuate a more frequent, more aggressive, proactive beach preservation plan in the future, this list encumbers or encompasses all of the revenue-raising opportunities for the city. So this assumes all revenue increases are allocated to beach projects, but we do know that we have a lot of other projects and other priorities. We have operational expenses that go up every year. The cost of everything we do continues to go up. So I think keeping that in mind, it's important that the beach is certainly very important, but it's not the only thing that the city is responsible for funding.
Yeah, and we've got that footnote at the total just beside the $2 million.
Good point.
Let me just hit this last two real quick. The on-beach business franchise fees, we've talked about this off and on over the last number of years. And again, if you think about it, just in what goes on our beach today, specifically, it's beach chairs and umbrella rentals is really about it. So that would be, other communities do one vendor, some do two, but anyway, you get a cut of their revenue is essentially what you're doing to allow them access to the beach and transact that. So this is one, it's going to take a few months to put in place, but it'd be nice to get in place before next season.
Yeah.
If there was
What else?
interest.
I mean, are we just going to increase the fee on the beach chairs then, and since that's the
We're not
only one?
going to.
We don't have,
No.
there's nothing right now.
Yeah.
So right now, the companies that deliver beach chairs and umbrellas, they have a business license. So they pay a business license just like any other business operating on the island. This would be a fee on top of that, where the city, currently our code prohibits commercial activity on the beach with the exception of some limited photography and surfing lessons. This would essentially allow that commercial activity openly on the beach. But the city would be able to control the vendors that are allowed to have that commercial activity on the beach. And then in lieu of that permit or that allowance, the city would receive a percentage of their revenue, potentially. So an example is Folly Beach.
Yeah.
They charge $1,000, in addition to the building permit, I'm sorry, the building,
The
business
business
license, they charge $1,000 plus 4% of gross. That's how they are typically.
Similar to a rental license
Correct,
structure.
correct.
So would this
Okay.
impact also the surfing vendors?
that's
So that's an option. I mean, the option would be, what type of commercial activity does the city want to, does it want to allow commercial activity? I think that's question number one.
Yeah.
If it does, which ones, how many? I mean, that would be the question
Yeah.
for you all. We know that surfing happens. We've had requests from folks wanting to give yoga classes on the beach.
I mean, your large majority revenue items are beach chairs and umbrellas, quite honestly.
And are
Scott, to your
those
point, surfers
currently
are-
not allowed? Is that what you just said?
They are. So they are. The delivery of the chairs to the property that they're serving is allowed, just like the delivery of a pizza to your house is not considered commercial activity at your house. We think, though, that somebody rents on the backside of the island, it gets delivered to some public part of the beach, not to the property it's serving. So that's happening, we suspect. It's very challenging to enforce who's receiving the chair, where they're sitting. And the other part of, the reason why a company sees the positive side of this is it's, like at Folly Beach, they choose only two vendors. So they're controlling the competition. So in kind of exchange for controlling the competition, the vendors are generally agreeable and seek out these franchise agreements to gain a little bit more control of the market.
And Hilton Head does one, Kiowa does one, just as a comparison. Scott?
Well, I would be concerned about, fostering competition or eliminating competition, because monopolies are not, would be my preference. But does this, or could this also apply to, we've got a real proliferation of like golf cart deliveries, of, other bike deliveries, all of these other suppliers and vendors that are delivering to the rental companies, all kinds of expanding goods and services.
It's not on the beach, though.
I know it's not on beach, but I'm looking at.
On the island as a
I'm
whole.
looking at opportunities to say, why does it have to just apply to the on beach when we have all these vendors coming over? We're mindful of traffic, we're mindful of congestion, the deliveries are in the middle of the streets. I mean, they're all over the place. So, maybe we even take a look at broadening the scope of these off the beach as well as on the beach.
So that,
These are off-island providers that are coming and delivering.
How is the
They're-
golf
The only
cart?
difference
What do
is
we
they're
do?
not delivering them on the beach, they're delivering them right.
yeah,
here.
so those, I mean, they would fall generally under just the standard business licensing. And they have a specific class and code in the business licensing code. We could increase rates for specific classes, but if you recall, probably 2-3 years ago, there was a new universal class, a standardization that was required by the state code, and they require that there be some kind of nexus between the cost of a license and their profitability and their services required by the city. So there is a little bit of methodology to figuring out the classes. So have to do some,
We could do that.
we'd have to
Just think
figure
about it,
out.
Yeah, because there's quite a growing business, delivery business on the island, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
we,
Yeah, all
we
the-
have to, I think that would be an increase in one of the class rates, but we'd have to vet that to see if that would be agreeable under the new Standardization Act.
Jane, back to your earlier question, did you get them answered? Are you good? Okay. To Katie's point, I mean, I know it's always uncomfortable to talk about fee increases and tax increases and all the pieces, but we got to do something. I mean, we are
We're on an island.
dead in the water to some extent, literally, if we don't do something around our own beach preservation fee fund. And again, to Scott's point, if the state, comes at us one day and winds up doing a sustainable funding method, we can roll back any and everything that we put in place to make that happen. But sitting where we sit today and looking at all the assumptions this committee has put together with Steve Trainum and Nicole Elkohl and many others, looking at erosion rates and projects needed over the next 30 years, we have got to do something. There is no doubt about that. What it is what we're, here to talk about and what we really charge this committee with. I'm certainly not in favor of a 3-year rollback on property tax increase, but we need all stakeholders at the table on this preservation fee. I mean, we've got to do something, whatever it is, so. Desiree Douglas, anything else on?
So is that a,
Are we going to?
is that a yes to all of them?
That's a call to action.
There's
yeah.
one more that I'd like to talk about.
Far away?
All right, the property transfer fee that Wild Dunes assesses.
Yeah, it's on the list.
Yeah, down at the bottom is seeing it, does it require,
A state law change.
how does, so,
Private community can vote to do it, but a municipality can't.
okay.
So before 1997, the town of Hilton Head was the only municipality that had implemented a real estate transfer fee. So it's a 0.25% of all sales. And I guess the General Assembly saw that happen. It was challenged at the Supreme Court, and they prevailed. General Assembly didn't like that. It's seen as a tax. And at that time, the General Assembly passed a bill, a state law statute prohibiting from municipalities from doing that. So that's why it would require a change in state law.
Well, maybe it's something worth looking into. Maybe we could just make it for beach renourishment or something like that. But according to Wild Dunes information, they have a 1% transfer fee, and half of that goes to their beach renourishment.
Yeah, city can't do
It's great.
anything.
No, but I just want
It'd
to
be
talk about how
nice.
much they
Sure
raise
would
from
be
us.
nice.
It's an easy one to me,
Yeah,
but
$650,000
again,
to $750,000, I think they raised from the transfer fee.
But just order of magnitude for every $1 million, this is a $2,500 add-on, is that right? I think my math's
At
right.
25, yeah, at that
So-
percentage.
And
not a-
what it means is that they have 2,100 homes, we have 2,500, so we're talking about $1 million addition to our bottom line if we can get this, even
talking about
giving.
roughly $1,143,908.
Yeah, yeah.
Roughly.
Even if we forgive the 50% that Wild Dunes is collecting themselves, and they only contribute half of that to us. So we don't, so they're not double paying. To me, gets us 25% there towards what we think our
Can I just
goal,
frame the problem?
our need is.
Can I just say one thing real quick? So again, these items that are in the state law changes, to me, some of the conversation with our lobbyists and our delegates are, if you're going to tie our hands completely and not give us any money, then give us some leeway to do something at a municipality level,
Yeah.
whether it's a real estate transfer fee, whether it's another 1%, or whatever it is. And if you decide to kick in at some point, we'll roll it back in a nanosecond. But
Yeah.
something has got to give around tying our hands on options of raising revenue and not funding our beach.
And claiming at the same time that they're in a protect, so that they can look good and pat themselves on the back and say that they're doing that. I mean, that's,
Just to frame the economic issue, and I fully appreciate Desiree's comments. There's a lot of other rising costs that we need to take into consideration beyond beach. But on the beach, we get currently roughly 1.6, 1.7 through the 1% that we're currently getting. And if we look at a renourishment every eight years or so, that's $20 million.
23,
Huh?
23,
Let's just say
plus, plus.
25. So we're looking, so we're basically looking at about 15 million, 12 to 15 million dollars over that period to be able to get there every, assuming there's some state funding, right, coming in, or some other funding, but we need to at least get 15 to 20 million dollars, I guess, over that. Let's just say 20. So then we need $2 million to $2.5 million a year total, and we're getting 1.7 of that. So we need roughly another $1 million of other revenue sources here.
I think the
Yeah,
issue is
you're-
we're not netting.
You're
Yeah.
1.7, you're netting about 7,
700, yeah.
because we're paying for
Okay.
Trinum and Beach Access Pass and other things out
I'll
of there.
say, so we
somewhere.
need about 2 million additional on top of that?
Minimum.
Yeah, we were
And
thinking
again,
3 to 4. yeah.
A lot
I
of,
was gonna say,
a lot
I
of
believe
assumptions.
the number we came up with was closer to 4.
All right.
Yeah,
Shoot
and
for
again,
4.
to your
Hopefully.
point, John, I mean, there's a lot of assumptions in the work we've been doing on the Beach Ad Hoc Committee. Worst case scenario, no state funding, no federal funding, no show management projects. Is some of that going to happen? Certainly, hopefully, based on our history. But at a starting point on the ad hoc committee was, let's look at worst case scenario to see where our hole is, and then we can back up from there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we've
And
been.
the ad hoc committee is saying about $3 million of additional funding?
It really depends on the
This summer.
frequency, it
Right.
depends on the assumptions that we have. One, to me, the two biggest ones are the frequency, how often we want to do the projects. Is it 6 years? Is it 8 years? And then the other big assumption that we need to agree on, sort of nail down, is the cost share with Wild Dunes.
Yeah, well, if we did everything that's on our controllable list, including a rollback, we're only at $2 million into this thing, so it's,
Yeah.
we have to do some of these things are beyond our control to get to the number you're talking about.
And to Desiree's point, I mean, if we take that 2 million and totally dedicate it all to beach renourishment, it's going to leave us a hole in other places. I mean, we have a $50 million drainage master plan on the shelf. It's $50 million 2 years ago. It's probably more than that now. That needs done. We have probably $100 million sewer project that we need to have done, undergrounding line. I mean, all the other pieces that are out there. It's a hard balancing act.
Yeah.
To your point, something's got to give somewhere along the way. So again, I know they're uncomfortable conversations, but it's just a reality of where we are with our beach right now. Desiree Douglas, anything else? Next item, looking for money. Speaking of, discussion of fiscal '26 state budget funding request. Each year, we put a list in front of our lobbyists looking for specific earmarks, if you will. What do they call them now? Not earmarks, because that has a bad connotation, but
Direct spending allocation.
Yeah.
I think it is.
an earmark. really.
At least we don't call it pork anymore.
So in the past, we've gotten state budget allocations for marina dredging, stormwater infrastructure improvements, ADA boardwalks, $1 million this past year for beach renourishments. So I would obviously put beach renourishment and stormwater on the list. Is there are there other items you might want to put on the list for our lobbyists to go after for us?
I think we had that resolution we just passed,
Yeah.
the 4 items there. Yeah. I was hoping that we could put some more beefy targets around it as opposed to the topics. Like you said, stormwater, I think was one of
Yeah,
yours. I mean,
beach
you know,
renourishment, stormwater, I think are
you know,
absolute.
stormwater drainage and, I mean, and the septic, I think we had the sewer infrastructure, you know. We, like you said, Phil, we've got a $100 million target perhaps to sewer the entire island. I mean, should we target our lobbyists to try to, you know, get us started with a $10 to $15 million chase on this at the either the state level, and I know we've been talking about initiating an effort to potentially get some federal lobbyists, but I think we've got to think in larger numbers if we're going to start moving the meter on some of these.
Yeah, I think we do, but the balance is, that's a non-starter at the state level.
For
I mean, if
what?
you go in and for 10 million anything, that's a non-starter.
Well, some of the, I mean, the rural infrastructure, some of the smaller cities have been getting $10 million grants. So,
Yeah.
I mean, they're under different funds, but, you know, I think if we try to do this $1 million at a time, we're going to have a rough go of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is a grant. It's a grant program, not a state budget
Not state.
allocation,
Yeah,
which.
this is specific. to
This would be
state budget
different.
Allocation.
Oh, specifics, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, I said that up front. And we've done, I think, for example, last year, beach renourishment, we put in 2 to 3 million, I think, and got $1 million. We put in something more than that for drainage and infrastructure and got $1.2 million or something, so.
And we rely on our lobbyists to, just from a strategic perspective, they will advise what has a better chance at not being thrown out when submitted. So we usually we prepare a list. We'll do that based on the resolution that council approved and some of what we've discussed, presented to you all at the council meeting later this month. And we'll be sharing that with them. And sometimes there's just some changes based on the committees that they're introduced and just their feedback and advice.
Well, and the election this fall, I mean, don't know who's going to be sitting in the seat in Columbia for sure, so need to wait for that dust to
Can
settle.
they potentially help us? I think I've seen grants in the last budget that was published by the state, you know, like with the fire trucks and other vehicles and things of that nature. I mean, should we just pop this list up with everything we possibly can?
Good.
Because anything we can get on some of these larger ticket items, we don't have to go out and finance, will give us some more relief to move money around if we need to.
Yeah.
Use more of our ATAX money for
Other things.
beach
yeah.
renourishment.
Well, and we've got a grant writer that certainly does the searching for us on some of those, Scott, so,
Yeah.
you know, we've got a couple of big ticket items coming in the fire department for sure.
Burying power lines, is that something under storm preparedness or something?
Resiliency.
Resiliency.
Easily could be. I mean, talk about something that
But
moves at a
that's-
snail's pace with Dominion. That one's tough.
Yeah, but that's
But,
still
I mean, it could be-
$50,000 on
yeah.
top right now, so. That's peanuts.
Can't get it if you don't ask, though.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't ask, you won't get, so. give
Desiree,
them
what
a
else?
bigger number that they
Anything?
can cut down.
You good?
What about with water and, with the sewage system, sanitary sewers? That needs to, I mean, we're coordinating with the Water and Sewer Commission on that if we're going to ask for funding, isn't that right?
Well, for stormwater, for sewer expansion requests, we would need to coordinate it with them.
Yeah.
They are a separate entity.
Yeah,
For the city, so the cost would be a cost to the commission, not the city. But we can certainly partner with them and help support and advocate for funding for those projects.
We've got enough requests or enough needs for stormwater and other drainage that I think we need to let them go fight their battle, and we're happy to help. but-
so when you were using the word sewer, you didn't mean sanitary. I think you said that. Maybe I misheard.
I would just kind of add to that discussion that the Water and Sewer Commission and the city have been talking about the feasibility of sharing a federal lobbyist. They feel like that would open up some avenues to them. We've actually talked to the same lobbyist about, I think they kind of work in tandem. I think they're used to working for cities that include a sanitary sewer component. the ones that we've talked to have been in agreement, we would treat you as one client, pursue kind of, you give us a list, include sewer, sanitary sewer, stormwater, and we'll kind of run with it and see what we can find in all categories. So that's, I mean, we have an MOU, we do support each other as best we can, but we do definitely operate very much in a silo, and it kind of has to be that way, but we have at least
Yeah.
thought that we could share some lobbying expense at the federal level.
Is there a way, I mean, I look at the whole situation with the evolving issues we're having with septic on the island. And I think every time we have a storm and a saturation, we have a reminder by driving around the island just how severe the issues are getting, without going into, ugly detail. They're not going to get any better. And we don't have an incentive program for people to hook up. It's cost prohibitive in many cases, but, if we've got roughly 1,400 systems in the 2.5 miles outside the gate, and the water table's rising and they're aging, and we don't have any kind of incentive, this doesn't end well, I don't think. So I don't know. I think I hear that they're on their own, but I don't know what the incentive is for the city's water and sewer to expand. I mean, there's really, I don't see it. I mean, we have, as a matter of fact, I think we've had a lot of conversation from some of the commissioners. They're not really pushing for any expansion. So, I mean, should we look at as a city council, maybe trying to adopt a policy of, hey, we want to get something moving here, and we need it to be moving in earnest, and we need, we got to get the highways in place and provide an incentive so that it doesn't become cost prohibitive.
So that was a big discussion a few years ago with the Water and Sewer Commission, and what essentially prompted the development of this MOU. And at the end of the day, I think what stops progress maybe at a policy level from the city and for the commission is, in order to finance an expansion, there is generally a belief that from their consultants, their team, that the city would need to implement a mandatory tie-in. And at the time, that was not feasible for the policy-setting body that was in place at the time, because of the cost that folks would need to incur in order to tie into the system and expand all that infrastructure to have the ability to ultimately tie in. And at the time, council passed a series of ordinances that incentivized as much as possible, when the infrastructure was available, when the property sold, or when the property was substantially renovated, that at that time, that was the incentive to get them and require them to tie in. I think what we have seen over the past several years, since those ordinances have been in place, is that has not really generated a whole lot of tie-ins. But I think at the time, that was the,
There's nothing to tie into. That's
Correct.
the
I think
problem. There are
that's-
no
There's
water
highway
mains.
system. I know.
correct.
There's no
So-
main line, and that's the problem. What they do have now with the Water and Sewer Commission is that when these larger houses are built, and there is no sewer hookup for them, and they have to go septic, they are required to put in a grinder pump, which costs like $90,000, and sign an agreement that when the water main is put in place, they will hook up to that water main. So there are quite a few of them, I think, that they've got now, hundreds of them in certain parts of the island. But they don't have the water main to hook into, the sewer main to hook into. And that's the problem. You
No, I
can't
get it,
get
yeah.
the sewer main financed on the market unless you have 100% of the residents along that main agree to hook up. And so if you've got a mom and pop there that can't afford it, or somebody just opts out or something, you can't get it financed. That's the catch-22.
We're just a tiny bit off topic. Let's
Yeah.
work on. I mean, if we need
All
to
right.
put this on the agenda, we can put it on the agenda, but
Yeah.
we're not going to solve it here
Well,
tonight.
it is, the Environmental Advisory Committee is
Yeah.
doing a water testing, And so that would probably be a good time to bring this up after we get the results
Yeah.
back from that testing. So I would say that, and that's supposed to be happening or has happened?
Probably has happened.
Yeah, so soon, but yeah, I think definitely once we get those numbers, that would be a really good time to
Yeah, that's
start this conversation in earnest.
The other kind of part of this is the last time we tested the effluent leaving the island, it was testing clean. So when you kind of look for cost-benefit analysis,
yeah.
if the water is not dirty water, it kind of mutes your argument to do it. So we'll see what we haven't done it for 15 years, so it could be a very different set of circumstances now. But that was the last information we had was,
Yeah.
even if you had a perfectly tight system with no leakage, it would only reduce the kind of contaminants by a minuscule percentage. So we'll see if that still bears out to be
But
true.
with sea level rise, we're looking at some point where it could be a colossal fail, and this is not something you can remedy overnight. So I think what we're trying to do is be forward-looking here, which I think is good.
All right, next item, discussion of adopting a sister city in the Appalachian region to provide support during Storm Helene recovery efforts. Jimmy had asked to put this on the agenda and have some discussion. Jimmy, you want to give a little background and further
Got a
insight?
short statement. It's called Assistance for Appalachia. And we're all very aware of destruction left in the path of Hurricane Helene, especially in small towns and communities in western North Carolina. I am heartened by the support for the area from all over our great nation. I am concerned what will happen to these communities when the TV cameras and the press are gone. The needs of the fine people living there will continue to be great, and resources will most likely be hard to find. The fall foliage season almost upon them, and with that brings a lot of tourists to enjoy the beauty of the mountains. But many, many roads are impassable and will be so for months, if not years, to come. So that revenue stream has basically disappeared for this year. Then comes the winter, which is shaping up to be especially tough for the residents this year. I'm proposing that Isle of Palm City Council reach out to our friends in western North Carolina to adopt a town or a community as our sister city. I'm not proposing monetary resources come from the city, but along with charitable organizations offer logistical support and continued food, water, winter clothes, blankets, ATVs, chainsaws, toys for Christmas for the kids, medicine, and all the other things to sustain the community selected through these difficult times. The city may want to partner with the Red Cross, Salvation Army, or other reputable disaster relief organizations to select the community chosen. I'd like for the city council to encourage other nearby communities to adopt their own sister city program. Thank you, council, for your consideration of this very important initiative. Peace in the neighborhood, helping each other out. And, you might ask, well, we've already sent a bunch of stuff, but it's like a broad application. And I'm thinking if we can get other communities to each one concentrate on one area, and there's probably 100 communities up there that are in really, really bad shape. And I'd like to see us adopt a policy of like a shoulder to lean on, if you will, that we're here to listen to you, and we want to help any way that we can. So I appreciate your consideration.
Desiree, would this take action? I mean, not tonight, obviously, but at our council meeting? in
We can
some
draft
formality?
we can draft a resolution articulating what the support would look like. I think that we would need to know what municipality the city wants to adopt.
Well, I can pick one, but I don't really want to be the one responsible. I mean, there's so many.
Yeah.
I mean, Chimney Rock is 400 miles from where the hurricane first hit in Florida, and it is just, it's over 60% completely wiped out.
Yeah.
Beautiful little town. I was up there this summer. We have a former island resident living in Swanea.
Swannanoa?
Yeah, Swananoa, and
That one's been,
they're having to hike out over a mile just to get water and food. It's a single mom and her son. Just hoping that we can do something to show that we feel their pain. I know what it was like when, after Hurricane Hugo, and we sure appreciated all the help we could get.
I'd like to propose Spruce Pine, consider that. It's a small town about 45 minutes outside of Asheville to the northeast. And it's a place I've spent a lot of time in. There's a craft school nearby, Penland, where I've summered. And a lot of craft artists that live in those communities around there. And none of them have any insurance, certainly not any flood insurance. And the town was wiped out as well. All of these small towns are basically in the bottom of the valley near a stream, and all those streams just overflowed and destroyed their downtown areas. And the people living in the mountains, they have no drainage anywhere, so the water just runs downhill, takes everything with them, and not only causes landslide and destroys the roads, but they also destroy the water and sewer infrastructure that they have. The pipes all need to be replaced, not just the treatment plant, but the pipes need to be replaced. So the whole distribution system. The same with sewerage, if they have it. So I would like to suggest that. I suggest, though, that I'd like the city to sort of look at what size city is best for us, because I think that matters. I think Spruce Pine is about 2,500 people. But do we want to do something comparable size? Do we want to do something larger? I feel like Asheville is probably keyed into most of the major sources of funding, and will be focused. So I like your idea, Jimmy, of picking something small.
Well, I would propose that maybe, and I'll be glad to do this, staff have got more than they can handle right now, contacting some disaster relief experts like Red Cross and Salvation Army, and tell us where the greatest need is.
Get some guidance.
Get some guidance, and so
Okay.
it's not just for, I'm, Spruce Pine, I know it well, and it's a beautiful little town. But, I'm really partial to little Switzerland. But it's not about what I want, it's what the experts would tell us who has the most need, in my
Okay.
opinion.
Desiree, you good with that as a follow-up? Let Jimmy go do some reconnaissance for us, and
Okay.
you good? Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll draft a
bringing this up.
resolution and leave the name of the town blank.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Last item is presentation of new T-shirt design for state ATAX-funded free T-shirt program. This has been running for a few months.
Well, the program has been running since 2007. The city
I
uses.
just meant the T-shirt design
Oh,
program.
the city uses some money from the state accommodation tax and purchases T-shirts, and those folks that come and stay on the island and come to City Hall and fill out a form telling us where they're coming from, how did they hear about coming to Isle of Palms, get a free T-shirt. If they want more than one, they can purchase it for $10. We've had the same design for quite some time. We felt like it would be an appropriate time to spruce it up. And we, with the help of the Recreation Department staff and Chandra, we put out a solicitation of art from artists. We had a deadline, some guidelines, and in your packet are all of the entries that were received. We received about 15 to 17, I recall. We asked for a front design and which would be small. Keep it in the first one, Amy, if you don't mind. Thank you. A front one, a small one. Next one.
On the next
The next slide.
Amy.
Oh, okay. So a small design in the
If we
front
said it louder, it might happen.
and a larger in the back. So very similar to the one to the design style that we currently have. So we pulled a group of residents together to help us select the top three. Those top three designs are the first three that you see in the order of your packet. That was their favorite, the second one, and then the third. And those three were presented to the ATAX Advisory Board, and they all agreed on this one to be the next official T-shirt design.
I like it.
And Desiree, do I remember this right? Is this young person live in Western North Carolina?
Yes, so this is a 16-year-old. She lives in the mountains. She comes to IOP to vacation with her family since she was very little. So she has IOP is a very close place for her and her family. We contacted them because we want to make sure that they are able to come to the unveiling at the farmer's market later this month. And they're going to do everything they can to be here. So yes.
Do you know
city do they
what
live
city
in?
she may be in?
I do not, I don't know that at the top
Let's
of my
find that out,
head, but
and
we
if
can
it's a small
find.
city, that's our city.
Yes, so this is meant to be used for the T-shirts. We also indicated that we could use it for any other advertising, marketing effort. The rec department staff would like to also consider painting that as a mural in their shed that's adjacent to the dog park. So it would be a cool
It's a good look.
addition.
Yeah, let's find out where she's from, and maybe that would be a good tie-in.
Yeah, we can do that. $10.
Absolutely.
See where it is.
So the
you
idea
all.
would be, we are also revamping the form that we ask people to fill to get a little bit more information from our visitors. And we'll unveil this at the farmer's market, and then T-shirts will be available starting January next year.
Yeah, that's probably the recipient of what we were talking about a minute ago. Yeah. Could be hard to vote against that one.
I listened to the ATAX committee meeting, and they talked about the child shirt. Are we going to do that
Oh, yes,
at
I'm
this
sorry.
point?
Thank you for reminding me that. Amy, if you can go to the fourth, I can hear her clicking. So there is a T-shirt design, there. That is a T-shirt design that was submitted by a group of teenagers that have autism, and teenagers and adults. They worked on that project together. Both the ATAX Advisory Committee and the group of residents that helped us down select those designs felt really connected to the story of this T-shirt. Recognizing City Council approved a resolution a few months ago to become an autistic-friendly community and partnering with Just Be, providing training to our staff, which we've done. We've connected that organization with the IOP Chamber of Commerce with the goal of our businesses going through the training and being included in the list of businesses that are friendly to these folks with some disabilities. So there was some conversation about also having this T-shirt available and maybe donating $1 of every T-shirt sold, of this T-shirt sold to an organization that advocates for the folks with autism.
It's not very much.
Great idea.
That was just a thought.
$1.
Folks thought that it was a great conversation starter. The very, very cool design. It's a stick figure that it's going to go surfing. And they like their awesome T-shirt. So
like it.
we thought it was a really nice touch, and maybe doing both. If
great
that's all,
idea.
if that's okay with everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you all for doing this, and Carrie and team.
A very cool
great.
community-wide project. We got a lot of really great designs, and we thank everybody who participated.
Awesome. Thank you all.
You're welcome.
For Kurt doing that. Legislative report, our folks aren't in session, so there's nothing to report there. Miscellaneous, our next workshop in November, so between elections and potential runoffs. So elections on the 5th, runoff, if there's one at state, federal, local level, that would be the 19th. So I would propose we do one meeting, like a council-only meeting in November on the 12th, if y'all are agreeable.
Excuse me.
And with the holiday, kind of makes it tough
Yeah,
to
it's
pull that off.
You mean have a council meeting on the 12th?
Yeah,
Yeah.
council meeting on the 12th, no workshop. Is that,
November.
Desiree, I think I didn't see anything on the calendar, on the city calendar on the 12th, so I think it was,
No, because that would be your regular workshop.
that's true, because it's the second Tuesday, yeah. Maybe we'll just make it a city council meeting.
You gotta bring the leftover candy.
I can. Y'all don't need any tonight. No further business.